Right, to get started with your Google Forms, you need to get into your Gmail first, so make sure you can log on to your Gmail account and you can access it. Once you're in your Gmail account and you want to get across to the forms, just go up there to where it says Google Apps. You just rest your cursor on it and it'll show you. Click Google Apps and look for Drive. Okay, that's the application for cloud storage with Google. And we go across, we wait a little bit, it'll come back to us now. There's my drive over there, and it'll show you the kind of the contents that you've got in my drive at the moment. At the moment I haven't got very much, so I want to go and create something new here. So I'm going to go to new, and I will scroll down and just use this arrow here, and I'll go to Google Forms, and essentially it's going to come up with a blank Google form that I can work with. So the idea of a Google form is it's kind of it's used for surveys and quizzes to get responses, and these responses are automatically recorded and we can analyze them in a spreadsheet as all these responses are saved. But the focus of today is just to try and say, right, well, what type of questions can I ask, and how do I set these questions in terms of how do I format them in Google Forms itself. Probably just remember from the start is that we're looking at closed questions, in other words, where there's a finite set of options. So if we look at the choice of types of questions we've got, and we scroll down and we have a look at that, there are a number of different ones. Short answer, multiple choice. Later on we'll look at some of the other ones. We'll start off with multiple choice because I think that's going to be quite a common one, as well as drop down. So before we even get there, let's just give our form a title. So we're doing a e-learning survey, or whatever you happen to be doing. You might be doing it on transport, and that's what you want to do. You could give it a form description, telling people briefly what it's about, that it's part of your PAT project. You're more than welcome to do that. Over here are the different icons that you're going to work with here. There's to add a question. That's if you want to add the title and description like I just have now. You could add images, you could add videos if you need to, and you could add a section. But most of the time you're going to be working with the add question. So I'm going to add a question here, and I'm going to say, right, I want this to be a multiple choice question because it's going to be a nice simple biographical question. Enter your gender, and we'll enter the two options that we have of male and female. Okay, and I want option 1 to be male. Okay, so option 1 will be male, and option 2 will be, if we go to have a look here, add an option, we would go and enter female over here. You could also add other if you wanted to, but I want to go and type in female in that particular thing there. So essentially what we would do is add these options, and you can go and move them around if you want to. You can drag them around, so if you decide male should come second or whatever it is, you can drag these options and drop them wherever you want to. I'm just leaving them for now. So what we would do here is add in, there's the male option there, that's my dog barking in the background if you can hear it, and this is female that we would enter over here, and right, there's female, and I can remove any options that I don't want if I've added any others in that I don't like, and that's what I've got at the moment. If you want to go and have a look at what your question looks like, or the way it would look like in terms of for the person who's going to view this form, because we're in like a design mode at the moment, you can go to preview. And I suggest you do this from time to time and say, right, that looks fine. That's an untitled question because there was one that I started off with and I've entered my own one. We can sort that out later. And they would then click on the submit button once they've completed it. So right, if you want to go back to the design view and have a look at that again, sorry, hopping around a little bit with too many windows open, we can go and have a look and we could submit or do whatever we need to do. Right, once we're happy with the preview and we can see our question, there are a couple of things done here. That's to duplicate the question, which can be quite useful, not because you want the exact same question, but if the next question that you're going to ask is also going to have 2 responses, you can copy it and then just obviously edit the question and edit the responses. You could also delete it as well, and then importantly is to make it required or not required, and generally you'll make them required. If you just slide this little thing over, it comes up a little purple thingy, and you can see it, and you'll be in business over there. So right, what I want to do now is create another question. So let's just say I want to create let's see what options we've got here. different types of questions that we have. I could go to a drop-down one if I wanted to do that and say, right, I've now got a drop-down question that I'm going to answer over here. Let me scroll down so that you can see that a little bit better. Okay, and essentially very much the same thing that you would enter there. So when do you use the multiple choice and when do you use the drop down? Generally we use the multiple choice if there's maybe 3 or 4 options, but if you're looking for a number of different options perhaps, or maybe 5 or 6, you might want to perhaps have a look at a drop down list in terms of not cluttering your screen too much. So for example, we could say I'm not sure if this is the best wording. You can think about it and improve on my wording. Classify yourself in one of, and always check your spelling please, one of the following. Okay, unfortunately it does give you a little bit of a heads up. My spelling's terrible, as my pupils know. Categories. And right, we could say option 1, you could be grade 8. Okay, so we just delete that and we say, right, option 1, you want to be grade 8. Option 2, you want to be whatever grade you want to be in, grade 9. And we could carry on all the way up to grade 12 and then maybe add additional ones. So I would add 9, 10, 11, and 12 there. Or I could also say maybe student, somebody that's sort of left school and is at varsity, etc., etc. It could be a teacher, that in case you wanted to get a response from teachers, depending on your question in the type of survey that you're going to ask, or you could ask adult as well. And so you would end up with this drop-down box with all these things. Obviously, I've just typed over the options. You would obviously have 7 or 8 different options that you can, and again you can go and preview it if you want to go and have a look and see what did it actually look like. If we go to preview, we now should have 2, so there's one over there, classify yourself, and there's a drop down box, and okay, I finally only left 2 options, and that's what I have at the moment. Now, possibly despite what your teachers have said in class about not generally asking people to enter their date of birth, this PAT's going to require us to do some calculations on dates at a later stage. So what I would suggest that you do is go and ask that question. Okay, so you would go to add question, and not a multiple choice this time, because you would go there and you would go to date, and the question that you want to ask is enter your date of birth, and they will get a prompt that enters that. I would suggest you make it non-compulsory in this case, because it will allow some people the choice of not entering their date of birth but still completing the rest of the form. Right, now, as much as we'd like questions to be sort of neat yes and no's, often people want to give their opinion on a scale of, say, ranging from perhaps very poor to very good, or whatever the question would dictate. For that type of question, we go and we have a different type of question, and that's called the linear scale one. So, for example, let's just say I want to ask a question to say, rate the importance of battery life in choosing a device for e-learning in the school, whatever it happens to be, on a scale of 1 to 5, and you would say not important at all. Okay, not important at all. And you might say on the other extreme, you might say, and of course you can rank them in any direction. In other words, you could make 1 the most important, it doesn't really matter, but not important, but you need to give the 2 opposite ends of the scale. So not important, and you might say very important. So that people could rate this on a scale. Important not to make your scale too big, because then it's a little bit difficult to interpret. So very important, and that's what we would have there. And the way the person would preview this, or if we preview it, we can see what they would see on the thing, and it would say right, and they would rank it on that particular. So you could have a number of different things. So for example, you could be asking a whole lot of factors which you think might be obstacles to implementing e-learning, and they might range from safety in terms of pupils having to take tablets or whatever it happens to be to school, charging, costs, the digital divide, a number of different options that you could have. So that's another important way of ranking things. Again, just watch that your scale's not too big. Otherwise, people sometimes go for the middle and say, well, they're not sure, so they'll rank it as a 3. So you can make it on a scale of 1 to 4, and you can also give the interleaving ones, in other words these ones here, you can also give them labels as well, or otherwise you could just leave it on a continuum like this, where you say, right, 1's not important at all and 2's very important, so I would say yes, okay, I think it's a 4. Right, I've covered probably the most important question types that you can use in your survey. We're deliberately leaving out paragraph because that will allow the person to sort of type in what they like, and it's difficult to analyze, although you might want to have that at the end of your survey. You might want to have a question say, please enter any other thoughts you might have which you think might be of use. So we've looked at multiple choice and check boxes, which are quite similar, and we've looked at the linear scale, and we've also looked at the date option, remembering you need to include the date of birth of the respondent for other purposes a little bit later on. The one that I've left out is checkboxes, and if you can remember from perhaps in grade 10 still, one of the things about checkboxes is that it allows the person to select multiple options. Now this can be useful, but it can be a bit confusing if, for example, to try and analyze and the person goes and clicks all 3 options as opposed to 2 options. So it's fine, but just realize that the person can click more than one option here. So just be careful the way that you use that type of question, I think. Well, just before we finish off, just a note on the settings here. If you click on settings, a couple there, the default one should be fine for you to collect. You can decide whether you want to collect people's email addresses. Generally, one wouldn't want to do that. This one you can restrict it to certain groups of users. You may not want that. You might want to untick that in this case. And you may want to limit it to 1 response. Okay, if you do that, however, people are then required to sign on via Google, which might mean fewer people are actually taking the time to answer your survey. So, and these 2 I would also leave as well. After they've submitted, they can edit, and for them to see the summary charts and text responses, because after all these responses are done, we can go in, and I'm just going to cancel here. You'll have seen at the top their responses, and it's actually accepting responses, and it's waiting for the responses, and because nobody's answered the survey yet, because I haven't saved it or given it to anybody, I can then go and create a spreadsheet, and it will in fact automatically create the spreadsheet once the responses are in, and they'll all be recorded for you, which is really very nice in terms of the fact that you can use it in Excel and examine all the responses that came in and look at which of the questions and the answers you want to examine, and say, for example, look at males versus female answers in terms of how they responded to various issues, and also age, etc., etc. Also, if you don't like the boring color palette that we've got here, there is a color palette that you could choose. There are also various options right at the beginning based on templates that you can use just to brighten up your form a little bit, some of them. But remember, try and make it as professional as possible. Some colors are more acceptable than others, perhaps. That's a little bit garish for me, but you know, that's going to be your response for that one. Alright, boys and girls, where were we? Oh, sorry, okay, there was another video. We end up with a e-learning survey, basically, or whatever survey it is. It could be on transport, and it could be as wide or as narrow as you choose it to be. Rather have more questions than too few, as we've emphasized, because it's difficult to go back and redo the survey. Ultimately, once you've done with the survey, and get other people to look at it while you're actually trying to put it together, and maybe even test it if you need to. We can always discard those responses a little bit later. But once you've got that, essentially what you'll be able to do is to get the URL of the Google form, and you will be able to go and paste it somewhere or put it on your Facebook page, whatever it happens to be, and you can ask people to go and answer it. And that's really the beauty of it, is that it's so quick and easy to set up something, to get responses very quickly. It happens to be for the pet in this case, but it could be anything from a theme for your 21st birthday party to what people would prefer to see in a new product line, whatever it happens to be, the feeling of parents in terms of changes in the school, a number of things like that to do that online. Obviously it requires internet access, but with more and more people having the internet access via their smartphones, etc., probably the And I think we've only got about 14 seconds left of this thing, so I don't really know what to say in the last 10 seconds other than enjoy this. I think you're going to have a lot of fun with it, and all the best, boys and girls. Okay then, bye-bye.